Hey there, Prof T here. As I've been teaching at a liberal arts institution these past few weeks, I continue to reflect back on my liberal arts education. And I am getting a better understanding of the three core skills that a liberal arts education endeavors to teach its students: deep reading, critical thinking, and clear writing. It's those three skills that when you learn them, they teach you how to learn. It's that meta learning skill that has really driven a lot of my success. And for this Back to Basics post, I want to dive into one of those skills: deep reading. Today, we're going to talk about three tools that I use for deep reading: rereading, reading with a pen, and reading versus studying, kind of that mindset of reading versus studying. I'm going to tell you why these tools matter when I come back to this image here of the learning flywheel. First and foremost, shout out to David Watson. That's this guy, one of my early learning muses, my English professor from high school, who grilled his class, who drilled into his class's head what you see here. It's not reading, it's rereading. He would often say this to us, trying to instill the idea that reading something once is never going to be enough for you to actually learn it. You see, the first time you read it, when you're done with that text, you're going to know what's in there, what's actually written on the page. But when you come back to it, you're going to start to understand what it means, what those ideas mean that they're trying to tell you, what those concepts are that the page is trying to deliver to you. That third time, that fourth time you read that book, you're going to start relating those concepts, relating those ideas to your own ideas, your own experiences. Sometimes, if you're reading works of fiction, you may start looking at those characters and the choices they make and start connecting them to other characters that you've read in other books. You see, it's that continuous reading, that rereading. Every time you learn something new, you learn something different. And every time you come back to that book, you are also a different person. As you learn new things, as your own ideas change, you come back to that book with a different view, a different lens. And that helps to enable you to learn even more and different things with every reread. That's why rereading is so important. The second thing David Watson used to tell us was, if you're not reading with a pen, you're not reading. This is all about engagement, right? I challenge you to pick up a book and put a pen in your opposite hand and try not to use that pen while you're actually reading. I bet you can't. I know that I can't. Because again, it's all about engagement. As I have that pen in my hand, it gives me, it sends a signal that I am more engaged with the book. I can't stop myself from clicking open that pen and actually underlining text, actually writing my own ideas out in the margins of that book, writing out the connections that I'm starting to see in the text that I'm reading and to the other readings that I've done. Another trick that having a pen in your hand does, I learned this one from my latest teacher, my latest learning guru, Jim Quick, using a pen as a visual pacer. Instead of using the writing end of that pen, flip it over and actually set it on the page and use it to guide your eyes, line over line, of what you're reading. Have you ever had the feeling that you've read a line 6 times only to look up and read that you actually have read that same line 6 times? Well, if you use that pen as a visual pacer, you'll find that you won't go back to that reading. It's called regression. You'll find that it keeps your accuracy on the page. It keeps your eyes focused on the page. As Jim Quick teaches, using your pen as a visual pacer is actually one trick to increase your reading speed. And just by reducing the amount of regression you have, reducing the number of times you go back to reading that same line, you'll see that your reading gets faster, more accurate, and it becomes easier to work its way through a page. Use that pen as a visual pacer. And then take those notes and ideas as they come to you right there in the margins. You can't find a book in my house that doesn't have a number of notes from me having read and reread that information. The last piece for me is a mindset. And it's a question I ask myself: am I reading this book or am I studying this book? The distinction I make is, if I'm reading a book, it's often just for leisure. It's maybe for light reading, maybe just for a bit of enjoyment. Not some, maybe I won't be taking notes in that book. I might not even come back to it to reread it. I might even read a small chapter of it and then put it down. But when I make the decision to study this book, I come with a different intention. It's the intention that sets my attention, that sets my focus, that sets my purpose, that sets my intensity. It's when I grab that pen and know that I'm going to read this once and then I'm going to come back and reread it to make sure that I learn those ideas, that I learn those concepts. In grad school and undergrad, I did a ton of reading, mostly for school. When I graduated, it was the better part of a decade before I actually picked up a book, for leisure or otherwise. Before all that, I used to love to read. Even reading many of the textbooks in school, I caught myself enjoying it. But as soon as I jumped in the workforce, I was reading emails every day. I would often read the news just to keep up with what was happening. I'd pick up a magazine or here or there, but I never picked up a book. For the better part of a decade, I never picked up a book. Then I caught myself at a bookstore one day. I still remember this. I went to a bookstore. I grabbed a book off the shelf. I don't remember what the book was. I sat down in a nice, comfy chair. And the next thing I know, I look up and an hour's gone by. And I've been totally engrossed in my reading. I stood up. I put that book back on the shelf. And by the time I got to my car, I realized it's been the better part of a decade since I've read a book. And I just spent an hour reading a book. I didn't need to have a pen in my hand. I could barely remember what the book was, and I certainly wasn't going to buy it and reread it. I wasn't interested in studying it. And that's when this piece came to my mind. You see, making it made it okay by saying I wasn't going to study that book. I didn't need to study that book, made it okay for me to just put the book down. It lowered the bar, lowered the expectations, and made it easier for me to just read for leisure, to just do light reading. It made it easier for me to reconnect with that love of reading that I had. All of that to come back to the why of this presentation. Why is all of this important? And this image here that we started with, the flywheel, the learning flywheel, if you will. The learning at the center, reading, thinking, writing, all supporting around it. Reading is one of those inputs. Like Jim Quick would say, reading allows you to have access to all of the knowledge of the author built up over a lifetime of knowledge, skills, and experiences right there in a book on the page in an accessible format for you to download into your brain. As you read about those ideas, as you know what's on that page, as you understand the ideas and concepts, as you relate them to your life and draw connections to your own experiences, you start thinking differently about the reading, about your life, about other things you've read. As you start writing about them, be that for school, be it writing notes in the margin, writing notes to yourself, or even just having conversations with your family, with your friends, with your coworkers about what you're reading, you are learning more about what you think, what you understand. You're building a more rich tapestry of the world that's driving new ideas, creating new thoughts in your mind that you then go out and research, that you then have more information that you read and think about differently and start writing about. And as you cycle through reading, thinking, writing, new ideas that feed back into new readings and new ways of thinking, all of it drives your learning forward faster, continuously into your lifelong learning. And as I'm sure you know, the learning that you do transfers to all aspects of your life and improves all aspects of your life. The number of emails that I have caught with a typo before they've gone out, the number of spreadsheets that I've found that incorrect formula and corrected that data error, the number of presentations, the number of times I've been through this presentation to catch those errors, to catch those typos, all of those were facilitated by deep reading. And every time I went back through, I saw something new. I learned something new. I gained something new from that email, that report, this presentation. So, what's the next action? Do one thing today. Go back to your favorite book and reread it for the second time, third time, fifth time, sixth time, and find one new thing. I guarantee that you will. A new idea that you picked up from that book that you hadn't seen before, a new understanding of one of your favorite characters. Find that one new idea. Then grab a pen and write about it. Take notes in the margin of that book. Even better, use that pen as a visual pacer and see if it helps you get engaged, read more deeply, or if it just makes your reading more accurate so you're not caught reading the same sentence over and over again. And then go back to that bookshelf, go back to that bookstore that you love, and pick up that book that you've always wanted to read deeply, that you've always wanted to study, and make the decision. Set your intention, bring your attention, and make time in your calendar to actually study that book, to grab that pen, grab a notebook, read, reread, and use that pen to deepen your reading. And when you've done that, come back here and tell me, what are you rereading? How has your rereading changed the information? And how has that rereading changed you? As always, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Let me know what I can do for you.